Welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast that has the science and the screaming to unequivocally figure out what the best movie of any given year is. This season, we're digging into 2001, and this week specifically, we're talking about Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away. I am your host for the entire show. This is not one of those weird shows where halfway through a giant hook pulls me off stage and somebody else just starts taking over, no matter how hard they try. I am Mike Gravano. You know him, you love him. He's me. And with me, as always, let's bring him out first because he hasn't spoken yet, is Greg.
The trick is you grease yourself up. That way the hook can't find purchase on you. Then no matter how much they boo you, they can't hook you off stage.
Can't, just slips right off over and over and over again.
You'll never be able to get me once I've covered myself in grease. Which you know is how I handle a lot of issues.
Yeah, just always covering yourself up, greasing up, jumping right through those sewers. And then there's Ryan.
I'm so happy to be here, Mike. I thought that after you did such a bad job of scoring last week that you would sort of like not ask me on the show anymore. But no, I'm happy to be here. Guys, is this the earliest of any movie of the year season where we're like, nope, that's it. We're all done here. There's no reason to continue.
I don't know. There's still Royal Tenenbaums there, Ryan.
You deserve an Oscar for that acting attempt, Greg.
Piano Teacher. Who knows?
That's a good movie.
Have you even seen Piano Teacher? This movie belongs in 1985. It feels like a 1985 movie because it absolutely felt like it changed the game. It just, man, changed what I thought these animated movies could be. I can't believe
it all it does is take the edge off of it's no longer about me versus Greg or more likely me versus Mike.
Yeah.
And it's no longer about these 8 movies versus each other. It's just like, can we just sit and chill and talk about Spirited Away for 2 hours? Like, that's all I want to do.
Yeah, to show just the tiniest bit of we come prepared. We're professionals here. We take our job seriously.
We watch
and
the movie.
amount of we at least watch the movies. And the amount of notes I have on Spirited Away was fewer at first because I forgot what I was doing because I was so just into the movie. And I was spirited away,
Mike,
Greg. That is perfect.
Away.
And I cannot tell you the last time a movie did that to me.
This is my wife. This is not the last time that my wife's going to come up, but my wife watching
Say it
this,
right. Say it. Pronounce it right.
The way that she reviewed this movie was like, I didn't want to look at my phone once. And that's sort of like what this movie is like, if you look away, there will be 3 or 4 or 17 of the single greatest frames of animation or celluloid or of film history that you have ever seen in your entire life. You stupid idiot. Why would you look away?
And you're not going to find something brighter or prettier on your phone than is on the screen right now.
Your phone won't make you feel better.
The first time I watched this movie...
Meanwhile, the movie's like testing your patience, though.
Yeah.
And so you have this whole thing of like, I want to grab my phone because I have an addiction, but I don't because this is amazing. But I can't believe how in so much of the movie, it's just like calm and soothing. And yet I am still addicted to the screen in front of me instead of the screen to the left of me.
Yeah, the way I feel about it personally too is it's not just the scenes that were festooned with detail. It was even just the shots of just her face full in the frame.
Yes.
It's weird how even the simple drawings are done on such a different level than I feel like any other than I've seen. That even those more simple images are as arresting and interesting.
There's a scene on the train where she looks to the left and the camera moves in on her, and it's just it's the protagonist that we've had the whole time, and I'm just like, what's gonna happen? Is there gonna be a monster? Is she gonna grow? She's already grown. She's already grown so much. I'm watching her grow. Look at her. Oh my God! Is her bottom lip
just zoning out on the train, humming a song in her head? Probably.
It really is her just staring off into space for the first fucking second in what seems like 3 weeks. She has a moment to herself, and it's the most endearing part of the movie.
Yeah.
You guys are champing at the bit to just talk about the movie normally.
I want to talk about this movie.
You just want to pull each other puds. So I'm going to say we should take a break, and then come back and dive straight into Spirited Away. After making films for teenagers and for little kids, Hiro Miyazaki says he wants to make a movie for 10-year-old girls after spending numerous summers with family friends with daughters of that strange time in between childhood and the adult world. Spirited Away follows 10-year-old Chihiro and her parents as they move to a new house in a new town. Hating the fact that they have to move, Chihiro also hates the fact that they don't listen to her after they make a wrong turn and find an abandoned theme park that she wisely says, "Let's not be here." When wandering around the Scooby-Doo villain hideout, the parents are ensorcelled into eating non-stop, and Chihiro finds herself with the adult responsibility of being beholden to spirits and otherworldly beings to try to free her folks so they don't remain pigs forever. Taste buds, I ask you this. Fitting into a long line of girl puberty fantasy movies, your Alice's in Wonderland, your Labyrinths, your Coralines, your Waiting for Guffmans, how does Spirited Away speak on its maturing heroine?
Very well, I think. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that it does that age-old adage of, oh shit, girls in puberty. I don't know, shove them through a hole and have them meet a bunch of fucking strangers and weird things, and then when they come back out, they'll be adults, and that really is like, that's like a 200-year-old trope right there.
And it feels like one sort of like additional layer to it, though. Is that she is not just growing into herself and becoming like reliant on herself, but there's like a message here that like she is the agent of regrowth for her parents as well. And I think there's a lot of intergenerational stuff in this, and it's about like rehabilitating a generation above you, not just like growing into yourself, but actually like finding a way to like, you know, bring Darth Vader back or get our parents not to vote for Trump, you know, like some way of restoring the light. And that's not right, because that's
tell them to get off Facebook. Like, that's your job.
That's a topsy-turvy existence, and so it's a world that's out of sorts, but that is the world that we have, you know, a world turned upside down, to quote Hamilton.
Yeah, it's interesting because that's normally seen as also bad if you have to kind of raise your parents. And I guess this movie isn't saying a moral way, one way or another. It's just saying you do.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
isn't that the number one reason to have kids? Is I will need someone to take care of me later. Like, I don't have a farm for my children to take care of. I just need somebody to like do to me what I did to them earlier. And it happens like that. Chihiro's learning that way earlier than I think most kids do.
But it's interesting because her parents seem like pretty good folks, where so many of these, the parents are pretty awful, or at least the kid thinks they're awful.
I don't think that's true at all, dude.
Really?
Yeah. They're deeply poisoned. I don't know if they're good or bad, but they have a disease. They have capitalism real bad.
I mean, like, the first 10 minutes is I think a thing that typically is missing from your Alice in Wonderland. You know, like, we do spend a solid 10 minutes with Chihiro and her parents, and we learn that, like, she's kind of a child. Like, she's petulant.
Yeah, she's scared of a brat. And
that they seem like parents until, and I think the one line, and especially because this is our third Miyazaki movie, where the dad, they start to house the food that they see, and he's like, I have cash and credit cards.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want.
Well, I guess it's their, like, because at that point they're already magicked. Like, when they're walking through the tunnel, they already seem different and a little obsessed with this place. So,
but
I guess it's in that car ride before then that they seem solid. And so it's, what do you blame on the magic? What do you blame on them?
Even the car ride, I would say, when they start going down that forest road, the dad starts tearing ass. He's driving like way too fast. I think that like they make a point to show that they're going way too fast for that. Like, she's bouncing around like crazy in the car, and he's like slumped over the steering wheel. They're already like, because I think they are particularly susceptible to this weird like sirens call, because they're already kind of like piggish consumers. So it attracts them even more than it attracts other people. But I think they're ensorcelled basically right away.
And the whole thing that, like, oh my god, this is an abandoned amusement park. Like, we have to stop. Like, what else is a call for, like, fat capitalistic morons than an amusement park? And then, like, the abandoned part, I guess that's cool to see too. But
it's
yeah,
a lot like Pinocchio, right?
Right. And I definitely, they are drawn to it in a way that, like, they can't control. You know, like, it's not just like Miyazaki was like, well, I gotta have a story start somewhere. They're like, oh, what is that? I can feel it drawing me into that.
How do you guys feel about that, like, throughout the film? Not just in the beginning when she's like, it's scary, don't go in here, which could be just a little kid thing, but, like, she does intuit all the right things to do at every moment. Do you think it's the power of kindness she brings into the world that the otherworldly spirits don't, or is she kind of a Mary Sue?
No, I definitely don't think that. And fucking take away a point for you even saying that. I think that what she does, she's in this perfect middle ground of, like, I don't know, like, too dumb to understand how everything works. And, you know, and I think that it's purposely started off with that when she's like, I only gotten one flower before, and then this is the first time I've gotten many flowers, and I want even more flowers, you know? Like, she has that in the beginning, but then she also recognizes, you know, like, game or lack of game recognizes game. But I don't want that. I don't want how piggy you guys look. And it comes off as, like, typical 13-year-old girl daughter embarrassment, but it's also correct. Don't fucking act like that. Jesus Christ.
Don't eat mystery food where nobody's around, where most of the buildings are rotted, and you say it'll be fine later because I have credit cards.
I have credit cards.
I think she is she's a character of destiny, and whether or not she has that destiny is just like born into her, or whether or not it comes into her when she falls into the river and interacts with Kohaku, the river spirit, at that moment. But from that time forward, she's more in tune with the spirits. And so I think her initial wanting to move to not go deep into the amusement park is, this is not a place for us. Like, we're not supposed to be here. And she's very respectful of the rules of spirits, and that saves her many, many times. The fact that she, like, bows to spirits and is considerate of them rather than, like, you know, acting like in a peremptory way with them. So I think that she starts off very in tune with the spirit world, but she does have a little bit of the corruption, and you do see that in the flowers. The fact that she is so attached to the flowers, the fact that she's, like, so despondent over a change in life rather than, like, embracing it. She does seem like she has the disease from her parents, because, like, first of all, they're driving around in an Audi, which I have to say that was remarkable to me. Like, a German
the logo
luxury.
is straight up there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
it's unmistakable. That's the car they're driving.
And there's just, like, I mean, that, you know, so they're like, that's an imported car. They kind of have a Western style of dress. It seems like they almost. My wife at first was like, "Are they American?" It'd be like, because they just seem like they have Western capitalist ideas, and that has descended onto her a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, I don't think this is the last time that, like, Chihiro's going to come up as, like, being American as opposed to human. But I think that, like, how the movie is so nuanced is, like, she has to, you know, move forward and sort of, like, want to break away from her parents, but not really, and then also want to move into this new world, but not really. And it's that it's the battle of the not reallys that I think separate it from most animated movies, where it's like, oh shit, Act 1's over, then now I want this instead. Yeah, you know, like, instead it's all these baby steps of, like, the parents weren't that bad, but they were just bad enough to, like, push her on to her next phase of life, which is, I think, pretty realistic, because that's how most parents work, is like, we don't want you to be to, you know, get older, and also we do, and also instead of, like, training you, we're just gonna be fat fucking pigs in the meantime.
And what you're saying, the be this but not really, go a little this way but not really, it does feel like that, because the movie's not saying Western is wrong, Eastern is correct. It is like, here are the parts of Western capitalism that are not right, and here's, like, maybe there's some sort of our tradition that is also not right. There's, like, too many rules or intergenerational issues, and how they all treat Sen like shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can agree after 3. We've watched 3 Miyazaki movies that, as thick as the themes are, it's extremes that are the worst, right?
Yeah.
And so, basically what we're doing is moving from world to world and saying that if it's any far to this way or that way, I don't know if that's a good idea.
I think one thing that's kind of interesting is I happened to watch both the subtitled version and the dubbed version. I watched the dubbed version first because I didn't realize I actually had access to the subtitled version, so I watched them both. And one kind of interesting difference is at the end of the subtitle version, Haku says that the river, or no, rather, Chiharu says the river has been, like, in the subtitled one, she says the river has been covered over, so it's still there. It's just there's been, like, a road built over it. And in the English version, they say that the river's been filled in. I think that's a really important distinction because I think the idea is supposed to be that the spirit is still within Japan specifically.
Right.
And that they just have to find a way to feel it within themselves again, that it's not apparent, but it's still in there and it can be redeemed. And then it's kind of dire and very sad and depressing that in the American version, it's just like, nope, it's gone. Like we have filled it in. We have erased the river. We have erased where the spirit can come from.
But in the way that I watched it though, with like Haku, he was like, although there's very clearly apartments on top of what I used to be or what I used to spirit above, now that I know who I am, it feels like there's hope there. At least there's promise. You know, like as long as you can you can refine like who you are and who you're meant to be, then you can do something. Even though that capitalism has sort of like bullshitted its way over you.
Yeah, if you know your roots. There's one. No, Greg, go.
The other big difference, just while we're talking about it, is as they're driving away in the American version, the Alec Baldwin as fuck dad is like, so what do you think? What do you think, Chihiro? Like, it's a new year. Are you going to be okay? And she's like, yeah, Dad, I think I'm going to be just okay. In the Japanese version, it's silently going off into the forest, which is a much better way to handle that last part. Hey, what do you think the moral of this story was? Be okay with growth and change. That's right, sport. Let's go to the credits.
In the American one, she jumps in the air, freeze frame, credits go. She puts her hand out, Trapper Keeper hits right into her hand. She's going to go fucking fuck a bunch of dudes, probably.
United States forever.
The last thing before we move on off this topic is there's a certain point, like Chihira's already trapped, and then her entire world becomes an island. She's surrounded by water, and she gets a job pouring water on people. She also hangs out with the river spirit, and rivers have water. What are we doing here?
What are we doing here?
What am I? This last one you want to throw in right now? I mean, like, there's the obvious stuff of like how water cleanses, water is rebirth, water is change, right? Like, you know, like there's a very, hopefully we get to the segment later, but there's a very clear, with enough water and effort, you can become an entirely different person. I think that's a lot of it. Of like, you know, if you cleanse yourself from your old self and then become whatever you're about to be.
But I think we see
like
the
no
balance.
matter what your circumstances are.
No, because I think we see the balance in that too. Like, I mean, I think that, you know, the answer is always going to come back to balance, but there is such thing as too much water. Like when she lets the water overflow at one point, or when they're just like completely, you know, removed from the entire world, and even the train is like getting filled up by, you know, by the water. I got the sense in those moments that like that was even an abundance of that element, you know, is too much. That's not like in harmony.
I think the movie in general too is trying to do a lot of like control the uncontrollable, you know, like like, because water is just so forceful and everywhere, and then to have like people who are specifically working and like, let's see if we can conquer this God-made thing that is always so powerful, and we will have control instead of that. I think that's a lot of it too, is how long can you control all the changes in your life before you can't, and then life is about to take over. As,
they make
like,
it
some
conform
sort of
to this like machinery with inside the bath.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you think that at that moment they think they can control it, but all of them stop leaving when they're in an island, but she's like, I'll just walk with the water and through the water then.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. If we're going to go back to Lord of the Rings, like for a lot of monsters, it's very scary. You know, sometimes they stop right at the shore and they're like, oh no. But I do think if you can figure some stuff out, if you understand how fluid it is, I guess, like if you can control the fluidity of it, then you think that you can control your own fluidity. But I'm not even sure the movie's saying that. I think the movie's saying like everything is fluid no matter what.
Yeah, learn to not control it
right.
so much.
Shit is going to change.
Also,
with that flow.
I think that there is a very surface level thing with the water where it's very pleasing. Like, what a pleasing backdrop. I wanted to soak in each of those tubs so bad. Like, even more than the delicious looking food. When like they would show just like an establishing shot of a steamy room, I'd be like, oh my God. And then a big weirdo soaking into the water, and I'd be like, oh, I wish I were that big weirdo.
All those duck chickens with leaf hats.
Dude, duck chickens with leaf hats forever.
The steamy rooms, like, and then the rain too. Like every time I watch a movie with rain, I'm like, get out of the rain, come in. I'm watching this movie in my house. You should come into my house because you're getting wet. And the rain here it looks so great, and natural. It was like, oh, I want to be out in that rain.
That sound does, of course, mean that somebody is trying to offer something, and I think what they're offering us is a short break that we won't take too much of. And when we come back, Mount Rushmore.
Hey, guys, thank you so much for listening so far. And let me just tell you that everything ahead of this commercial is much better than what came before it. That's my guarantee. While I have you here, let me tell you about a website. It's called yourpopfilter.com, and it's everything you need that's related to Pop Filter. Everything Mike, everything Ryan, everything Greg, everything Cassie, everything is there at yourpopfilter.com. While you're there, go to yourpopfilter.com/Amazon. Make that your new Amazon bookmark and do your shopping from there. That way, we get a little piece of the action, and Amazon doesn't. Make sure you're also listening to everything that Pop Filter has to offer, which includes the Superhero Show, a podcast that covers every single TV show that's based on a comic book or comic book property, and Movie of the Year, where we sit down and try and figure out what is the single greatest movie of any given year. That's Superhero Show, that's Movie of the Year, and that's yourpopfilter.com. Rate, subscribe, review. Bye!
Mount Rushmore! We, of course, know what that song means because it says Mount Rushmore, and before that I said we're going to do Mount Rushmore. So, right now, of course, we're doing some Mount Rushmore, which is the most famous American mountain, being known because it was just naturally formed with predicting four of our greatest presidents' faces on it. And that is it. But our Mount Rushmore is the four greatest pieces of fashion of 2001.
So, do you want to put each of these fashions on one of the presidents?
Yes.
That is, historically speaking, for sure. So in each of your pitch, you can mention that if you wish.
And of course, this is kind of like echoing the way on the real Mount Rushmore for the holidays and stuff. They dress them each up. Like, so for Halloween, They each have like a costume on, usually like one of the more traditional costumes.
I was surprised that Thomas Jefferson was David S. Pumpkins. But he did not get the memo. He just was in that stupid pumpkin suit. So let's kick it right the F off. Greg, you are the winner. And we haven't made it a big deal this whole episode yet. Like, I think we've been pretty cool about it. But you were my best friend all last week because you won Fellowship of the Ring.
We are currently besties. We are a fellowship of two.
Hold on.
I like
he
that.
won the Movie of the Year episode that talked about the movie Fellowship of the Ring. He did not win, like, to be in charge of the Fellowship of the Ring. He is not leading those 8 other people down to the mountain to take control of the ring. He just won one podcast.
Thank goodness. I am not leadership material, and I recognize that.
You know what? It's great to know your own limitations.
Yeah. I'm like
a
good
Greg.
second or third in charge, but I'm good at going first when it comes to this segment. All right, we're having a little fun. 2001 was about not just style, but comfort. And if comfort was comfortable enough, you could throw style right out the window as you slide on your Ugg boots. Were your feet cold before? They'll be sweaty in moments. Ugg boots. I feel like for a while we were supposed to like maybe hate these boots, but I think that was code for just hating women, which I don't feel like doing. I also don't hate pumpkin spice latte because I don't hate women. So Ugg boots, they seem comfortable, but they would make my feet sweat, but also they seem famous at this time.
What about pumpkin spice Ugg boots?
Yeah, I have I have absolutely no problem with that.
I need that because my feet sweat in sandals. So if you're going to put furry boots on them, at least give it some sort of deodorizer.
Every time you step in sandals, Mike, it's like you just stepped in a puddle and splashes everyone in the eyes.
Mm-hmm. And people love it.
And people
are talking about it more and more.
Yeah, I think it was trying to remember 2001. I think it was the fact that you're wearing boots that are made for winter, and that's just what I'll do. But then you were also wearing like a tank top and cut off denims.
Yeah, it was the upstairs downstairs of your outfit. Like, are you cold? Are you not?
But if you're like a 90-pound woman, and most people who I saw wearing Ugg boots were 90-pound women, like no matter what you're wearing, you're cold, especially your feet.
And Obviously,
That's why
get
they
their
never
name from,
show
like,
up on their wedding days.
If your feet are cold, you look down, you're like, ugh, boots.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to put them on.
I think that is a great first pick, but I like to keep the tension going. As we all know, I'm a fan of. So that's going to go in the maybe pile for now. Ryan?
So this I did have to go to my wife for, but I once she explained it to
Cheating.
me, it's so clear. It's something that's, and I would like you guys to look this up because when I say it, I don't know if you're gonna know what I mean, but when you look it up, you're gonna know. It's something called chunky highlights, where instead of just making all of your brown hair slightly more blonde, you would just have brown, blonde, and that would be your highlights.
It's like somebody looked at the old Jack Kirby images of Crystal the Inhuman, but then instead of having it be sideways and black, they're like, what if we do it vertical and blonde? Boom, there you go. Looks dumb for everyone.
If I was host, Mike, I would give you like 3 points for saying that shit. 2 more.
I'll give myself 1.
I like this segment because it's just like, what were attractive women up to in this year? And because some of these are pretty wild and look pretty awful, but when you put it on like a model, it looks okay.
Sure.
Then you see them 2 years later when they've gotten rid of that, and you're like, "Oh no, it was awful."
These are
It
full
was
on
so much
stripes.
better without that.
These are like zebra stripes. Like this is
Yikes! Stripes, fruit stripe gum for sure.
wow. This is
But-
upsetting. I don't like this.
We have to remember that, like,
Quicker on the
when
drum, please.
when you walked out of the salon with these chunky highlights, and by the way, they were called chunky. There had to have been a better name than that. You were like, oh my god, I look so good because I still have all of my brown hair, but then I've got blonde everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And this is 2001 to me.
It's very 01.
I
Very
feel like
good
Legolas
choice.
had it. I feel like Chihiri had it.
We'll see if it makes the mountain. It's on the maybe pile for now. Greg.
You're crazy. All right. Let's see.
This is what it's like, Greg. This is what it's like for me.
Now, denim is, of course, very popular of any time, but it's always, I feel like, expressed differently generation to generation. And when I think 2001, I think the denim miniskirt. My wife, who I was dating at the time, had one of these, and it's like they take the jeans of a fat man and they just cut out one section of them, and then they wrap it around the lady.
So her skirt was one fat man's leg.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Rumor has it is after the 90s and the Party Monster era, they had so many Janko baggy jeans left over that they just started chopping them up and making them skirts for the ladies.
I mean, that's what the rumors say.
Rumor has.
Yeah.
That is going to go straight up on that mountain.
Feels good.
It always feels good to get something on the mountain. Ryan, what do you got?
So confusing. 2001 was all about. 2000 was about. Let's have hats that are just fully fold out and like there's no holes in the front, there's no holes in the back. But what if we were to take the front part, leave it alone, take the back part, poke a million little holes in the back, and then now girls are wearing hats and Ashton Kutcher's wearing hats, and Ashton Kutcher's like, you got punked, and I'm in this hat, and truckers were like, I've been wearing that hat for a really long time, and I do not like how people are treating me right now. It's the trucker hat.
And then Ashton Kutcher starts pissing in a bottle and throwing it out the window, and suddenly it's like everybody is pissing in a bottle and throwing it out the window.
And they all punked. They all punked.
Everybody's punked. And that was the theme of that show is, turns out we're all punked.
Yeah, America is the ultimate punked.
I gotta throw
And they
this.
always said Von Dutch. But like, what was
They
Von
often
Dutch?
did. Those were the douchiest.
Vaughn is a common Dutch pre-last name.
Oh, okay.
You know, like just about your last name is about to happen, then you throw a Vaughn in there, and then Dutch is what those people were. So Von Dutch.
Very straightforward. I appreciate
Comes
that.
out.
Thank you.
Tracks.
You learn something every time you listen to this show.
I thought you were going to say every time you listen to Ryan. I was like, wow, what a compliment.
No.
That is.
Every
who said
other
that?
time
So,
tops.
Greg,
Yes.
your move.
My move. All right. 2001 was the time of the midriff. Very short shirts, like low-rise jeans, and then just the entire middle of the woman exposed.
And so what is it? Say the name of this category again. What is this?
Fashion.
No, not the overall category. The name of your submission.
Oh, midriff?
I've just never heard anybody say it like that.
How am I supposed to say it?
Midriff? I don't know if you're right or they're wrong, but I just needed to hear it again. I like it. Midriff.
What is it though, really? Oh no.
I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring this to a screeching halt. So the midriff, yes, it was out to play. For sure. Abs for days.
Midriff is what I think it is. The region of the front of the body between the chest and the waist. Midriff.
I like it. It's fine. It's I'm just gonna throw it on there because now I feel bad. Let's move on. Ryan.
All right.
One more and then we're trucking into speed round.
Yeah. All right. So this is definitely a maybe then. I appreciate when you like pink tops, you like pink pants. What if they were both pink? But I do not know how to describe your butt. Give me a word. Is it juicy? Yes, your butt is juicy. I like the time where designer clothes companies would say, like, let's be called Juicy. And then I honestly thought that these pants were just describing butts. It was like hypercolor, and like the words would change depending on the butt that they were on. But no, it turns out that the company was Juicy, and they spent all their money making velour tracksuits for people and then putting Juicy right on the butt. And I don't care if I'm right or they're right. I just like it. I just think it should be on the mountain.
The placement is always weird because I was in high school at this time, and there was definitely a lot of jukey butts because that eye would disappear right up that butt crack, and maybe they should rework their font in that meaning. I think that is going to be a hard one to beat. You each get 2 for the speed round, Greg.
It's like, do you see my butt? How about the like sort of pop punk off-center lip piercing?
This is awful.
How
it's
about
the worst?
pop
The fish
punk,
hook.
Off-center eye piercing?
Oh, just go into all the things.
Just the forehead.
Back to Greg.
I think that's all. That's all the ones I have.
Okay, that's it, Ryan.
We've talked a lot about dudes having to pop 2 collars instead of 1, but we should give credit to the girls saying 1 tank top, nah. A different color tank top on top of that would be good. 2 tank tops at the same time. We didn't think science could handle it. Science did.
That is a good one, but I think that ranged for too long. Supreme to be 01 specifically. Your Mount Rushmore of 2001 fashion is coming out hot in a tight denim miniskirt.
Boom.
Abraham Lincoln. Keeping it real douchey is not FDR. What's the other one? TDR in his trucker hat. Rocking that midriff is Abraham Lincoln. And then in just a perfect matching velour suit. Who's the 4th president?
Thomas Jefferson?
Washington. I forgot. General Washington and Juicy. But they are all wearing the extra accessory that would have gotten you each 3 points if you had said it, is they all have an iPod and earbuds, and it is not plugged in. It is not on, but it is brand new, and everybody freaking loves it. So that is Mount Rushmore. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, more Spirited Away. Hola, Filterinos. I just wanted to interrupt real briefly and say thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. If you want to support us a little more directly, you can go to patreon.com/yourpopfilter. There, depending on what tier you pick, $1 a month, $5 a month. If you're crazy, anything more than $5 a month, don't do that. You can get extra content. There's extra shows, extra series, behind-the-scenes stuff. You could pay for Ryan to draw you a picture. I can write you a poem. You can get the shirts off our very own backs. All of that and so much more over at patreon.com/yourpopfilter. While you're on the internet, you should check out Shady Monk. He does all the tunes you've been listening to. He's on Bandcamp. He's on Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever kids get their music these days that I'm too old to know. Shady Monk lives there. You can probably follow him on Twitter and Instagram as well. That's Shady Monk. Wherever you get music, check him out. Taste buds. I would like to talk about the villains, and there are a lot of important ones throughout the film. So let's start off. First, let's focus in on Yubaba. Can she be boiled down to a traditional villain?
Yeah, that's so hard. I mean, it's like villain always sort of like, I guess, like presupposes that all you care about is villainy or revenge or something.
Mhm.
She's definitely like, she does bad things, but it doesn't seem like she's really villainous that much. She's just like kind of like a very bad boss who sort of enslaves people. So that's like,
yeah, she does enslave people and turn her parents into pigs, and there's a lot of pigs there.
But I mean, like, it's not just Chihiro. Like, do you remember when the Spider-Man, the guy in the basement who is moving all the things, he's like, "Hey,
guy?
Soot, get back to work, or she's going to change you back into just Soot." So that's sort of like her thing is like, if you don't work for me, then I'm gonna change you back into like basically like not a real thing.
Yeah, everybody, even the people who look down at Chihiro, nay Sen, are afraid of Yubaba. The Frogmen, Lin, like all the other nameless ladies who work there.
And it's not Disney because it's not like I'm just evil because I'm evil,
Yeah.
right? And it's not even the personal revenge thing, you know. Like even like let's say the witch from Snow White was like, I think that I could be cool. I think that I could like live my life, but fucking Snow White makes me so bad that I'm gonna be evil forever. It's not even that. It's just like, hey, I gotta run this business. I have to run this business, and the best way to run this business is to do this and this and this, and therefore you are fucking evil. You know, like that's the point, is to not make it like a two-dimensional, like, ha ha ha, Disney villain, I'm Cruella de Vil, I'm Ursula. It's like, oh, she's a businesswoman. The worst kind of fucking evil possible.
Yeah, like the banality of cruelty, or like that's what
like,
does it.
Everything she does, she has to fucking pull a form out and then fill it out and sign it. Like, and like, that's just how she's evil.
She gave Chihiro the job because Haku tells her, like, no matter what, just keep asking for a job. And she's like, why did I make that oath? Like, there's definitely in her contract is if somebody asks for a job enough, you got to give it to them.
Yeah, that's like just in their nature. I think these spirits, it's in their nature to like be making deals and having like, you know, like secret language. But yeah, you know, after like sort of condemning the real Japanese world through the parents, she's kind of that same condemnation of even the spirit world. Like she has fallen into that same trap. She herself is a pig. She like, this bath should be something beautiful and nice, but it has become so polluted by this idea that it has to run at like hyper efficiency and do a crazy amount of business and bring in a ton of gold, that it like has built itself into an evil enterprise. And
what that does
herself at the head of it.
Basically what that does is it like, if we want to talk about Disney, it turns itself into a reverse, like, Sleeping Beauty, where instead of like, oh, you just work and now you're a princess in a fantasy, now go be a princess, you're just a normal person, welcome to the fantasy, now go work. You know, like, it's this weird fantasy world of like, no, but if you want to stay here, now you have to go be the slave. That's what she's done, is she's made it seem like, oh, yeah, no, like, it looks like Disney. And it feels like you're in Disney, but no, you have to learn how to put your rag on the ground and run it back and forth as hard as the other people, or we will destroy you.
Yeah, if so, you've talked a lot about how Yubaba is not a Disney villain. What is there anything that connects her to your traditional Disney villain?
Well, I mean, I think around her. I mean, she has a very. I think she has like the hypercolor look of her, and like
she's grotesque to look at, right? I mean, like,
but grotesque and inviting at the same time. I mean, she's so detailed, but the detail is kind of off-putting, but in kind of like a fun way.
And like, the amazing part about this movie is that, like, in the last 30 minutes, when it sort of does become a normal Disney movie, you know, we meet her twin sister, and you sort of get to see like the trick of animation. If a person with this hideous face has like a supportive voice coming out of it, you're like, oh, okay, cool. She is choosing, and her twin sister says, no, you know, like, we're the same, but we're very different. She chooses to be in the top tower with all of the Western things, you know, like, she decides that she's going to be as evil. Like, you don't have to run things like that. She has decided that. And I think the twin sister's condemnation of her sister, of Yubaba, is like the most evil thing we hear. Everything else sort of feels like business as usual.
And Granny is an interesting. That's what Chihiro starts calling her, because when we meet her, she is also evil. She's bloodied up Haku in his dragon form. She turns the baby and the weird bird Granny thing into a smaller weird bird thing. Like, and she almost kills Chihiro. what is she there? Is she a villain? Is she just a random antagonist to show the neutrality of people? Like,
she's someone who has like just been attacked, and so now she's striking back. So when you first see her, because you don't understand who she is or what's going on, you see her like as a hostile force. And then it's when like there's this kind of integration of going to visit her and like to really see who she is that like moves it beyond a like conflict and into like sort of like a harmony, a coming into like alignment with her.
But she, like, first of all, she comes in and she turns it into the Disney movie. That is, like, it's actually appreciated at that point, right? Like, we
got to go somewhere at some point.
Right. We have enough of the Miyazaki imagination. Let's just, like, let's get to the end real quick. And, you know, she shoots tranks while her sister shoots guns, right? Like, the sister wants to own people forever. She says, oh, that spell wore off 2 hours ago. You could just shake it off. And her victims are like, nah, I don't want to. So, you know, like she is the witch in Wizard of Oz or whoever that is like she's there to like teach lessons and morals, and always has this like upstanding view of how life should work in mind. Whereas Yubaba is the Trump of it all. Like at a certain point, either I was born this black and dark, or at a certain point I became like this, where all I can care about is very self-serving things. And I think that's the whole point of Miyazaki things, is that that's why they always have kids as protagonists, is that like you haven't yet learned how selfish you could be. You know, you're in that position where you're going to learn that, oh, selfish is bad. Whereas everyone in every other movie, if you're not the protagonist, is like, selfish? What? Hell yeah. Let me do that shit.
Yeah, so bring up Trump, you guys talked about capitalism earlier. So like the spirit world is still filled with like money and finite resources. They're all like after those tokens. So how does that generation gap that Miyazaki brings, how does that connect to the evils of capitalism? Kind of a different kind of villain than Yubaba.
I mean, we talked about with the parents that one line of, I have cash, I have credit cards, I can do whatever I want. And it's what No Face learns, right? No Face is wilding out for a little bit, and then he learns that, oh, if I shoot gold out of my hands, then I can get anybody to do whatever I want, and then they become the worst part of themselves. Even if they watch me eat up their society, then they'll still do it if I make gold.
Yeah, is that so? No Face is like this tertiary thing. He doesn't move the plot along. Yeah. He, for a while, it seems like only Chihiro can see them, but he is like the spirit other spirits are scared of. But what does he represent here? Is it just codependence? Is it if you have too much, if you give a moose a muffin, too much birthdays and the Berenstain Bears?
I think
he's the next step of Gordon Gekko, basically, based on how you asked that question. Like greed is good. I don't think it is, and it's because of No Face.
Greg, I think that I think he's a weird figure in that he takes on the characteristics of those around him. So ultimately, he is redeemable. But he gets into this bathhouse, and he is reflecting the greed that he sees in people, and that creates a vicious cycle that creates more greed in them, which he reflects more back to them until he consumes them in the same way they want to consume. And then when he is finally made sick of all that stuff, and he sicks it up, and then is moved into a more supportive environment, you get the sense that he could echo something better. Like, he could echo either what's good in people or he can echo what's bad in people. And he'll there's two wolves inside him. Which one is he going to feed, guys, right? Mike, could you hit the point button for me, bud?
Which is why it's so crazy that...
for having to listen to that.
Miyazaki had him follow Chihiro, right? Like that... Because I think that's such a strong point, is that, like, it wants to follow Chihiro. Yeah. We just don't let it. We stand in its way, and we do whatever it wants, and we let it take us in and take the gold and have it become us. But what it actually wants to do is follow the pure person, which it... Thanks.
And make that noise, which is off-putting, sure.
That's just the noise that any simp wants, where they like the other person is quote unquote in control, but you with your gross pathetic simpness, you are actually controlling this whole thing. Like, please take this.
I think it's important to note that capitalism is not on its own terrible. You know, this thing that can like produce gold out of his hands is not terrible. Capitalism plus the worst of us is what makes it a monster. And if we were to all be Chihiro, then we can all exist. You know, and Chihiro goes to a different land. You know, like how we thought, like how we wish communism worked, which is just like, hey, stay over there, and that's fine. They go to a different land, and she's like, no, stay here, which I'm gonna say is America. Just guessing by how, like, Japan was making movies at this time. You stay over here, and I think that you'll be okay, or we don't care. But don't fucking come back on the train again and come back to our land.
She's saying that to No Face?
Yeah. Like, no, hey, you, like, endless...
For the good of him,
It and them, everyone, for the good of everyone. Your constant, like, capitalism will just take the face of whoever it eats. So why don't you stay here, and we're gonna go back over here. And like Chihiro says straight up, let's get him out of the bathhouse. He clearly does not belong in the bathhouse. Yeah, and he fucks the whole thing. Like, all of their things that, like, have been around for seemingly hundreds of years all go to shit.
But they were already bad. Doesn't he just reveal how bad they were?
Maybe, but that's the other part too, is that get capitalism out of here so it doesn't reveal how bad we have it over here. Like that, I think that take still stands.
See, that's why he's codependent, I think, though, Mike, because he does. Like, he finds a situation that is in bad shape, and he is like a catalyst or something. He just lowers how much time it takes for it to go completely bad. So he makes it go faster, but it's, I think, playing on the same thing that, like, it would happen even without him. He just makes it go quicker, you know? So he's feeding the worst parts of them, and they feed the worst parts of him.
And I mean, there is a thing at some point where they're like, oh no, it's a no-face spirit. In the same way that they say, oh no, it's a stink spirit. You know, but they never say that, oh no, it's a radish spirit. Like, they know to keep the no faces out of there. And like, the only way that we can continue to function is to not have this person in here, because it's going to shine a light on what we're doing here.
And clearly he's not allowed in. It's just that she leaves the door open for him because she doesn't quite know the rules. I don't think he normally gets in, but she's like, she doesn't know a spirit that's allowed in and a spirit that isn't. So she's like, you want to come in?
Like, hey, you look weird. So does everybody else. Yeah. Why don't you come on in?
This all place is crazy. There is something sympathetic about him. Especially when he's like outside, floating outside.
Yeah, he's in the rain, and they all the spirits hate the rain. He's like the only spirit, I think, that is out there actually standing in the rain. They see that it's raining, and they're like, fuck, get inside. And that's when Yubaba's like, someone's going to try to sneak in because it's raining. So, like, obviously the running water, the falling water is not good for them, and he's stuck in it. And so she feels bad for him, and it's like, come on in. And I guess it's vampire rules. You never know quite. We never know. I never know quite, like, what cultural stuff we're missing. I don't feel like it's necessary to enjoy it, but the things like that.
I would just always assume vampire rules, though.
It's always vampire rules.
It's gonna always be vampire rules.
I recommend you shut the fuck up.
Okay, that is all the time we have there. We're gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, something completely different.
Well, that is very, very funny. Or very sad, and perhaps now you have something to think about. Or very problematic, and perhaps we have something to think about. But in any event, I'm sure you have some reaction to what you're listening to. So why not check us out on the social media? You can go to Instagram or Twitter and find us at YourPopFilter. Email contacts@YourPopFilter. Hey, everybody, keep watching them movies.
Happy medium.
Happy medium to you, too, Mike.
To you, everyone.
And a happy medium. It is that time of year. Happy medium.
Happy medium.
Is, of course, where we like to sit around, chat like friends, and say, oh, you liked this thing, Spirited Away in this case. You'll probably also like this other thing.
And let's be honest, we're hitting that peach hookah so hard. It's our favorite flavor, and we're getting in on it.
Yeah, it's all about that peach hookah, and we're just eating waffles and having a good old time with pals.
Why did Drophead have to say that?
Drophead's just into waffles sometimes.
Drophead's always thinking about waffles.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just like, it gets sassy sometimes.
Yeah, it keeps it real.
No.
You do.
Whoa.
You do get sassy. Chill out a little there. The crowd loves when me and Drophead have a lover's quarrel.
By the way, we have social distanced ourselves from the live studio audience. They are, of course, all caught together, maskless, but we are safely removed from them.
Private island. Everybody tested negative. Just a fun summer.
Private island. I love how Drophead, though, whoever is hosting will slowly wheel itself to whose ever house is the host.
Yeah.
It took Drophead 6 or 7 months to get to your house, Mike, but he's there.
There was a gap in between the 1985 season and the 2001 season for that exact reason. Drophead had to. Thankfully, none of us are really on the East Coast, because if Drophead rolled through Philly, it would have
go through Philly.
Been fucking dead. Yeah, this crowd hates Philly, and so do we.
The batteries rain down.
Let the batteries rain down over Africa.
Let the batteries rain down over me. Let them burn away my face and stuff. Sorry, continue, Mike.
No, I was into the song. I wanted to know where it was going to go. So happy medium. I think it's all clear what we're talking about now. Different kinds of batteries. Ryan, take it away.
AAA, man. It sounds like it's going to be smaller than AA. No, wait. Is it smaller than AA?
It is smaller than AA, yeah.
Yeah.
So it really lives up to that.
It really lives up. You think it has an extra A, it'd be bigger, but it's smaller. So, Mike, you've talked a lot about Spirited Away type movies, right? We talked about Alice in Wonderland, Wizard of Oz, Coraline, Labyrinth, but the one that I want to talk about right now is like an album, because that's a different medium, or a TV show.
Right. Just for saying you're talking about something else, I'm into it.
What if I was to pick a movie? And I think that
you fell for that, Mike.
I really did.
I think that the movie that reminds me the most of this is as great as all of those movies are. I think it's Pan's Labyrinth that really has the imagination of Spirited Away. You know, in two ways. One, I've never seen these monsters before, which is a similar thought that I got through a lot of Spirited Away, but also the backstory. You know, basically when Dorothy was in Kansas, it was just to be all right, let me look at these 3 fellas, and maybe I'll see them again later, and then they become her 3 fellas. But Pan's Labyrinth's background before she's in the labyrinth of war going on, and also I'm your new abusive father, I think that these two movies work very well with each other. I feel like that they're sort of stepping stones, and Spirited Away is for probably your younger crowd, and then when people are ready for the GDT, they can now get into the GDT, who I don't think we've ever done a movie of the year about, which is crazy.
It is crazy, and I think we could have this time. Devil's Backbone, I believe, was 2001, but
a phenomenal movie.
Didn't quite. Go watch it. Not for us. Don't tell us about it. It's a great movie, but you'll never hear us talk about it.
We'll tell you when we're going to do a show about it. How about?
Probably not, ever.
But Labyrinth is a downer, though, man.
Yeah, in a way that this one is not so much.
Yeah, different ending, for sure.
I love how, over the last 100 years, society has just said, oh, man, girl going through puberty? Let's do it this way. And they all do it the same way. And although it does feel a little hands-off and it feels a little I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty, it still comes up with these fantastic ideas, you know? And that's sort of what I love about all of the movies I mentioned are great. But Pan's Labyrinth is a movie that I think was talked about a lot when it came out and then has been a little bit forgotten since then.
Yeah, unless people do where they just put their hands up over their eyes and everybody shudders.
Like at raves.
What?
At raves. Isn't that the big dance at raves?
Yeah, that's
the
big rave dance. Exactly.
Yeah. Everybody shudder.
Great submission, Ryan. We'll give you one for just mentioning Pan's Labyrinth. Greg, what do you got?
For me, Mike, I read books. Have you guys heard of these things? They're stacks of paper with
books.
Delightful stories inscribed upon their pages. And the book I'm reading recently is a book that I have seen many times, and actually most people read it in high school, and I just never did. And so then I never ended up reading this book, and after a while you start thinking it's just for kids. And I read it recently, and I was blown away. And it is House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. And it is the story of a young Esperanza Cordero who is moving from place to place in Chicago, and it's a story of the like about her, but it also becomes a story about how twisted and wrong the world she inhabits is, and how there is no sense or order explained to her on what life really is and what's really expected of her, and that the way she finds out is through brutal experience, being humiliated and assaulted. But at the same time, it's not like a dire, terrible, awful book, even though dire, terrible, awful things happen in it. There's like this real intense beauty in various different parts, whether it be like a music box inside a junk store, or the stories of a relative, or one night at a dance dancing with your uncle in front of everybody. Like, there's these magical moments that are every bit as wonderful as the kinds of things that you see in Spirited Away. And the connection is made more clear because Spirited Away is like Alice in Wonderland, and House on Mango Street actually alludes to Alice in Wonderland by way of alluding to a poem within it. And it's just like, I don't know. It's a book that like high school freshmen are supposed to read, and maybe you end up like categorizing that in a certain way. I guess The Odyssey is a book high school freshmen are supposed to read as well. But when I read it, I was surprised by how there is this simplicity to the language in it, and this like crazy profundity to like the message. And it is such a neat and well conceived work, and it's really like a work of poetry itself.
And I think that what you really get from the author is, like, I don't think light is ever shown on this, Greg, but she knows. Like, she's read all of the Alice's in Wonderlands and the Coralines and the Wizard of Oz's and stuff, and the character sort of feels like, excited, like, I'm going to go through one of these journeys too. A little more realistic, but sort of one of these journeys. And instead of meeting all of these crazy characters and learning lessons, it's like, here's the first time somebody ogled me on the bus.
Yeah.
You know? And it's not like, I thought it was going to be like that, but it is still in the back of her head when you're reading that this is not what I thought growing up was going to be.
And the name again, it was House on Mango Street. Is that?
Yes, that's what it is, Mike.
And then do I go? Do you guys want to hear what I have to share?
After that, not really, but I guess go ahead.
Perhaps I will mock it.
Mine is also, I think it's the most mockable out of the three, because I know my role. It's a lot pulpier. It's another book. It's called Echoes of the Fourth Magic by R.A. Salvatore, who's big in the Forgotten Realms thing, but it's his first manuscript, and it's a dude from our time and world, and he wakes up in this like very fantastical world. But it reminded me of Spirited Away in that even though he's like an adult man, he has a lot to learn about the evils of capitalism and war, like Chihiro does. But it's also that he is surprised to find that he's in this fantastical world, and he's looking around, and he's like, wait, you guys are just as bad as we are back on human Earth. Like, these are the gross things. It's not the people or the kind of beings that are bad. It's these systems that are horrible and ruin everything that could be magical and beautiful. But
and there is like an extra layer of like depression that sinks in when this is applied to a fantasy world. It's like,
there's a bunch
sad.
of elves and unicorns and stuff. And then when he's seeing them like do deals with money and hate like the darker skinned elves, he's like, no, come on.
Yeah,
like,
you were supposed to be better than us.
And they hate him because he has a gun, and they freak out, and that's the fourth magic. They all do like real spells, but he has technology, and they're like, "What the hell is that?" But it's a fun pulpy romp.
It does sound like a fun movie, but or a fun book, but at the same time, it's like the saddest thing possible. The idea that our like poisons could infect the like spirit realm, you know, that idea. And they never like the spirit realm isn't necessarily like the afterlife. I understand. I don't understand everybody in the spirit world, because like Lynn is obviously a spirit, but like spirit of what? Is she a human ghost or?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, it's either that we can affect the spirit realm, or that the spirit realm already has all the terrible shit that we had. So, like, this is just all unavoidable. Like, no matter what, any community that gets together, it's just going to be this awful, and that's what everyone has to deal with.
I do think in, like, Eastern thoughts... Maybe I'll just stop there.
Perfect place to stop. It's all down.
I do think in Eastern thinking, like, there is this, like, idea that, in the spirit world, it is like a bureaucracy. like that. Those things
they don't
do
Beetlejuice
exist.
in.
Yeah,
like everything has to run with red tape, and we've done a lot of those movies. We've done Beetlejuice, we've done Brazil. Of like, no matter where you go, it's just like we have to fill out forms. I'm sorry, that's how we keep track of things.
And that is the ultimate nightmare.
Yeah,
Forms forever.
Just forms for the rest of existence. I can't, guys.
Well, if you want to believe that, Greg, you must fill out a form.
Okay, that does mean Greg will be filling out the forms, and we will be taking a quick break. And when we come back, more Spirited Away. Taste buds, it has been mentioned a couple of times throughout this episode that this is our third Miyazaki film, which we just happened to watch in chronological order. So I have to ask you, by legal mandate, how do the three movies speak to each other?
Like all three, like Totoro to Mononoke to this?
Yeah.
Well, if you just answer the question. Why don't you just answer?
Sorry, Greg, we thought about it for 1 second. I apologize to our audience. Like, just based on the three, I would say that Totoro was great, right? Almost won that year, but very simple. And watching this movie again sort of made me like Mononoke less. Mononoke felt a little bit sloppier, and it's because of Spirited Away. It's because Spirited Away is Totoro and Mononoke jumping up in the air and giving the grandest high five possible, and just having that perfect amount of patience and epicness that he was doing with those first two movies.
And manages to get like both kind of the smaller feel that we got from Totoro, and then the more epic feel as well. I think this is like a nice in-between place, because it's the story of like a big organization, and the things they do are like as exciting. There's some scenes in this where they're like action cleaning scenes that are as exciting as any battle scene from Princess Mononoke, but it still feels a little bit like, I don't know, slightly lower stakes.
But outside of the villain of Mononoke, which we praised a lot, I believe. I do not remember her name, but do you guys remember her at least?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Outside of that, Mononoke was very, very, besides like, I want to tell a big ass story. It was very like environment, Mononoke. And I could not believe how this movie handled it. Like, he was very clearly in touch with that. But when you watch it as a 6-year-old or then 8-year-old or then 10-year-old and then 12-year-old, like, you're very slowly getting into what he's talking about, as opposed to Mononoke, which was a little forced, I think.
Yeah, the difference between Mononoke, there's a difference between complicated and complex, where I think this is a complex movie and that's a complicated movie. I think all three, his general thing is, he has like a Star Warsian of the early days of like, there's an obviously bigger universe here. We don't know all the rules, whether it is cultural or whether he's just telling a corner, but there's no real beginning or ending, so you don't need to know everything. But in Mononoke, that started to bog it down. Like, wait, how does that village relate to all this?
Right.
And then here, you're not like, why is that frog different than that other frog?
Yeah.
Like,
It's just,
here are the rules.
And like, the rules don't matter. And like, I think that Mononoke may have been from a different genre than not just like this movie, but like everything Miyazaki's used to. Whereas this movie, much like most of his movies, are fairy tales, and that was like a Kurosawa epic.
Right,
you know,
yeah.
and then you have to have a lot more like history, and here's why A is doing B to C.
Yeah.
But with this, it was like, oh, I don't have any questions. None of this makes sense. I don't care at all. This is a fairy tale.
Yeah, they run a bathhouse. Spirits
Yeah.
come here, and they're gonna
Deal with
like
it.
take a soak. And honestly, that's the best part. Like, not feeling like you need to understand the logic of it or how it works. It's so much easier to experience this when there is such a plot heavy movie like Princess Mononoke. And yeah, you feel like you're supposed to know the twists and turns of it. You don't just enjoy sitting there staring at like the amazing visuals in quite the same way.
But Mononoke had tribes, right? And like pointfully,
Right.
like it wanted to like do a movie about tribes, and this movie was like, Chihiro is it. That's what we're doing. And so everything that we learned was through her eyes. I don't know if there was a single scene in this movie where she was not involved, where she wasn't in the scene, or they weren't talking about her in this movie, where she's going to some fucking, Wonderland or whatever. And
Yeah.
I think that makes it so much more focused. I think that means that like we can focus on her and the world, as opposed to being like, wait, hold on, did Tribe B I don't remember, and like this is the epic that Mononoke was practiced for, and I don't think Mononoke was bad. I don't think it's spirited away.
Well, something being good doesn't make something else worse. It just means
not
it is
true.
better.
No.
It is better.
You've been on the internet, right, Mike? That's
Mike, you're on a show where we enter into a bracket where we push other movies out for other movies.
Not yet.
But like the other thing too is that like I think that the characters in Mononoke talked so much about how we should protect the earth. You know, like they literally said it. And in here, the main thing that we got was a monster made of shit that we watched troll all the way into town, and then it sort of felt like a Kevin Smith gross out movie for a while.
The shit demon.
Yeah. Until a certain point where we realized that, oh no, this is a man destroyed this river thing. And I love the touch. I love the touch of the thing that like the first thing that they pull out of him is a bicycle handle. And I don't know if this is like looking too hard on it, but like it was an adult bicycle, and it's probably somebody who was like, I don't drive cars because that ruins the environment. I ride my bicycle. And then when he was done with the bicycle, he just fucking wheeled it right into the river and helped create this fucking thing. Who was, if you guys looked at his face, was in serious pain. Like, this is the saddest that anything was in this movie.
And that, I know we're not talking about Chihiro specifically here, but that is she can see that, where the rest just see a big shit demon and how
she's
gross
got that
it is.
Terminator vision.
She has
like
the
she
kind,
hones in.
yeah, the kind Terminator. That's
and
what Chihiro is.
They basically say, like, they mythologize it by saying, like, it's a lion with a thorn in its paw. Right? Like, they just say that thing.
Yeah. But it's interesting the way you see, like, that spirit is the victim of something, but the way in which it's rendered a pariah, I thought was like very effective imagery, because it's like it ultimately is, you know, subjected to all of this poisoning, and then everywhere it goes, it's just like being driven away. I mean, the idea that they clean things, that's what they do, and they're like, please turn back, we are closed for the evening.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, that it's rich and powerful, you know?
Yeah.
And like, but they don't know that. Like, once they realize that it's rich and powerful, then they will do whatever it takes. But
and they think it belongs to like the lowest caste of spirits.
Right. But it reminds me
that
it reminds me of like recent texts from NBA players of like, when I go down to my mailbox, I'm just a black guy, you know? Like, I don't, you know, like I can get beat by the police no matter what. This is like until they see the gold that, or like the power that could come out of it, they're all disgusted by it.
So thinking about Miyazaki with these three films and any other you may have seen, for some reason not to talk about on this show, is it useful to think about him as the Japanese Walt Disney, or does that limit his scope?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty simplistic. Like, that's I guess people say that because Disney Company owns all their movies, or because they both guys like started. Yeah, and both.
I mean, it's an entire country that looks to this one person as how we're going to do animation, how you're going to speak for a country for better or worse.
But
so
that's
I get
just
it in
so
that
reductive.
part.
It feels like, because it feels like this is way less a part of like corporate machinery than the average Disney movie is.
Especially because, like, I think you can look at Miyazaki's movies and be like, he's saying this about Japan, and maybe because he has more control, but like, I don't know if you can watch Snow White and be like, here's what Walt was trying to say about America at the time. Like, his does seem, the fairy tale isn't as a analogy. It's just like, I don't know, it's public domain, bitches.
No, I absolutely do think that you can. Like, he had severe control, and he was like, this is what I want it to look like. And what he wanted it to look like was that bad things get punished and white women win, and we should all help the white woman. There's a ton of things in there, you know, like there's a ton of theories, I guess, on the internet about how Spirited Away is about like the main character becoming like a whore in a brothel. And I don't think
because
that's
she has
true.
to work for money.
She has to go to a bathhouse and get a job and then change her name. And this is all exactly like how bathhouses worked back then. And I don't think that like Miyazaki was going for that. I think that's just part of his like, you know, background and like what he was thinking about. I don't think he was trying to tell a story about prostitution. I think that like his inner self became his outer self. And I think that you can read that in all Walt Disney movies of like, stop being dirty, become a hero. If you're not the one, then you should become the one. I think it's all there.
I think that he definitely is playing on the bathhouse angle, because I think that he's very much like saying that capitalism kind of makes us all into whores. So I think that he's very much like, I think that's a glimmer in there. I think people take things that are like resonances, or like, I think sometimes these things open up doors to other universes without ever saying like, this whole thing is a parable that means this. It's just like there's imagery in there that makes you reflect on that. The fact that all these women are taking these men in, like, they're constantly getting these like little tokens, right? And being like, I'm going to take this guy off to this room now and bathe him. That does feel like there's at least the potential for that to be in there, at least the glimmer.
And take away your name, take away your personality. I'm gonna own you now. Yeah,
and I'm gonna make you dirty. Like they're afraid to.
No, they're
touch...
making them not dirty. They're cleaning them, Greg.
Yeah, but like they're afraid to touch the really dirty spirits because they don't want to get dirty themselves. So there's like this idea that this place could pollute you, and it pollutes No Face, right? It pollutes everybody. It really like it washes away one type of stink, but it applies another.
But no, the whole thing is that it will definitely pollute you. It's just how long can you make it until you realize that? How much can I push that off before I realize that I have been polluted by this?
But
speed round, man, it is speed round, because that's what the robot just said. How does Spirited Away manage to make a bathing scene one of the most epic things we've discussed on this show? Which we will be discussed right now.
It's poop. Yeah, if you just add poop, then everything is better, I think. I mean, it's worse, but it's better.
This movie is part of what he's an expert of, is drawing back the bow of tension. He does it when the parents are walking into the theme park. It's like seriously 10 minutes of like, they're going to go into this theme park, but she doesn't want them to. And just that tension drawing back more and more and more. When she's going to go down those stairs early on, but she's afraid to. Mm-hmm. And then one breaks and she just sprints down.
Oh,
it's like 3 minutes. It's 3 minutes of her like trying to slowly go down. Yeah. And then she runs down as if she was like the Roadrunner.
Such a good blend of terror and humor there, because it is terrifying. She could plummet to her death, but then the way she smacks right into that building, it was super funny there.
And then it's the same thing with the stink monster scene, and that's part of like, it's just this, you see him coming and he's coming so slowly, and they try to stop him but they can't, and it's like this like string keeps getting drawn back more and more and more, and then the release of him being purged is so disgusting, really, really awful. For all the beautiful things in this movie, that is horrible and terrible. It is 100% the obverse. And then when he's cleansed of that, then it's a relief of all that pressure and tension.
I felt it off my back. Like I really felt like I felt like 30 pounds lighter. The other thing too we have to remember is that this is 2001. Like this is the end of the peak of Kevin Smith and American Pie, and there was just jizz and shit everywhere in movies. Yeah. And the fact that like this just felt like a legit, tense, awesome set piece, as opposed to trying to like get people into how much poop there was, I think that is kind of an accomplishment.
And then also the whole bathhouse like goes off afterwards, including the radish spirit, which is hardly moved at that point. And then he's doing like almost like that jester dance. Like that's dope, man. You got the radish spirit wilding.
How many bouncing green heads do you think you could handle?
2. 1 tops.
I would say that I think that I could do 2, because I could pit them against each other.
Turn them on each other.
Yeah. I like Ryan and Greg. You answered honestly the first time, but then you thought it was like a Price is Right deal, so you changed it to 3, and I don't like that. What do you think it means that the characters seem to go back and forth between friends to rivals and back again?
I mean, just like, hey, no matter how many like monsters. Sorry, I said hey, much like the fucking No Face, but no matter how weird and fantasy this world seems, it's fucking real life, bro. And we're just going to like each other, hate each other, like each other, hate each other for our entire lives.
It's most notable with Lynn, who at different points is like, "Oh, I have to pretend to hate you," and then, but like Chihiro like cannot keep up with like where she stands with this woman for the first like 15 minutes of their relationship.
When she meets Chihiro, she's like, "You dope, you fucking dope,
suck.
You piece of shit. You're a piece of shit."
But it does seem to be like that. Haku has that too with her, where depending at certain times he's friendly with her. Both of them are like, when anybody else is around, and it's not like cast-wise, there might be some of that, but it's also like, look, there's rules here, and we might all go down if they see us being friendly.
Haku's playing 3-dimensional chess.
He really is, though, right? Because he's like, I got to get out of here, and the way I'm going to do that is by pretending I'm my captor's like best soldier,
and then acting like Yubaba is like best employee in front of her, hoping that Chihiro just goes with him, and she does because she's in love because he's pretty.
Lynn is played by Susan Egan in the English dub, who is Meg from Hercules. Which is why she got it is just the most attractive voice. And I there's a way this person talks that I'm in love with. And so Lynn and Meg, plus they're both kind of mean.
Yeah.
None of this is a question. I'm just using this time as a confessional. What does that say about me? Nailed it.
That you're just like me. That like you like the Disney princesses that are right in the middle as far as looks go, but then their attitude shoots them up to being number one no matter what.
Ryan.
Is Mike more of that big baby? I should have read these first. Or is he the stink monster?
Big baby.
Mike is the big baby, for sure. The way that he stomps around and demands things.
Ryan.
Man, was anybody else getting major Akira vibes from that baby and from that baby's room? Like,
I would have loved if he shot his fat, chubby, giant arm out, and then it just kept growing and growing and growing until he could get his bottle or pacifier.
But I have to imagine that's at least a nod to Akira. Like that baby's room seemed so much like where they kept those little kids from Akira.
Yep. Blanked out there. Sorry.
Thanks, Mike.
Totally blanked out. Had a thing, forgot a thing. What do you think it would say? Like the baby obviously and the bird thing liked being their smaller selves better. Is that their own arc and growth process? Like now that they're not like huge and magical and ferocious, they're like, oh, there's a different side to us.
You know what? Going back to the Disney fight. Well, I think that like it was very important in this movie for everything to change, you know, and for Chihiro to go from a girl to a woman, but for literally everything else that has like at least more than 3 lines to go from A to B. Everything had to change. You know, even Yubaba, who like doesn't go from a Form A to a Form B, has the ability to just be like, blip, and I'm a bird.
Well, she's filling out Form A and Form B.
And yeah, and I think with that is that like, you guys, we changed you and I'm sorry and that sucks, but you know, like they sort of realize like how awful they were before and how great they are for like Disney material in a third act in this moment. And then they're like, no, I don't want to change. I want to stay just like this. And that's awesome for like, imagine if like Flounder and Scuttle or whatever, they were like, no, this is what we have to do. We have to be like this. We have to stay here.
I think there's a potential second meaning, and I don't know if this is a reach on my part though, but in a movie about work and toil, I noticed that they seem to enjoy the job they have at Zenobia's house.
Run around that wheel?
Yeah, which is because I feel like they are part of a team in that effort and that they're not under the thumb of anybody. So they're actually, it's not work that is like shown as bad in this movie. It's this idea that like you wouldn't be part of a commune, that you would instead be part of like an exploited class. They are fine with running on that wheel as long as it's their choice, and they'll stay in that form to do it.
The other thing too, though, is that I feel like a Disney-fied villain, you know, like whoever's against Sleeping Beauty or Snow White, just hates her. But to add the baby to Yubaba, like that gives her not just a little bit more humanity, but a little bit more passion, you know? Like, I have to go and win the day because now I am also fighting for something, because not only
she's the victim of something, or like she's under the thumb of something, right? Like she's not in ultimate control because she is like sort of under the control of that big baby.
Yeah, and it's what makes it even more worse is that like the baby grew. Like, you know, just like Chihiro did,
wouldn't
and like
stop growing.
But no, like it went from being a baby that was incapable of everything to being a mouse that was much smaller, but like now is part of the story, and then says, "Hey, mom, I arced a little bit. I don't need you anymore as much as I did, and also I think what you're doing is bad," which is, you know, what all the parents don't want to happen. So the baby sort of like became its own character because of the transformation,
while giving us the best Disney sidekicks. They're fucking funny and adorable, and I wanted to roll my eyes and hate them, but I love them way too much. Is the music up to par with the rest of the presentation?
I say no. I don't know if I totally understand what the music's doing, because it seemed to have like maybe 2 different scores that kind of like were like used depending on the mood, or maybe even a third. But a lot of times that I wasn't really feeling like the kind of piano score, and sometimes I felt like it was kind of disjointed with what was going on in the action of the movie. Like like it didn't respond to the movie in the way that I thought it would, by swelling during just like a simple conversation, but not at the moments where you think it would swell. Or
this is a hard question because we might be watching very different
versions.
Scores, all three of us. But I kind of liked it because it held back. It was more Bernard Herrmann from Psycho than John Williams from Jaws. But and it did the Back to the Future thing of like, you know,
and
like,
Zimmer though.
Every time we realized, instead of like having a full-on hardcore Harry Potter score, good point, Greg. Instead of having a full-on all the time Hans Zimmer score, it would do the Back to the Future thing of like you would realize something, and it would go like,
yeah, it felt complimentary in that like you come here for the like this. It's obviously there, and you would notice if it's gone, but it never overpowers, and it's not trying to control your emotions.
I did feel like it overpowered a couple times. I felt like the piano score during a couple of conversations overpowered the emotional depth of that one particular conversation.
Maybe it's just that I was also playing perfect piano at the same time I was watching it.
That
might have fucked me up. Yeah.
I don't know if that's fair, really, to do.
Pigs have 10 minutes orgasms. Just saying.
Yeah, right? I mean, hard to argue with that.
I think that if you added all of my orgasms up of my entire life, it would not equal 10 minutes. Like I am quick and quick. Like quick to orgasm, quick to be done with orgasm.
Yeah, nobody has like long, once you're coming, it's not long, right? Do you think the parents like retain that? Do you think they're freaks now?
Yeah, dude, I think so. I bet like he goes back, except he still has the corkscrew penis or whatever.
I feel like the worst thing that you can find is a dude who's capable of multiple long orgasms. That person will be intolerable to be around.
Yeah, I think when choosing a man, the important thing is get a refractory period that's like long enough for him to like lose interest and go start doing something else.
Even if it's a different woman, find that guy.
Go run and play, honey.
On the topic of pigs, if your favorite food turned you into a pig, what flavor Pop-Tart would it be?
What flavor Pop-Tart?
Mm-hmm.
Are Pop-Tarts flavors?
Wait, you think there's just one flavor of Pop-Tart?
Pop-Tart, please. I love that Pop-Tart taste.
Well, I mean, like, there's types of Pop-Tart. Are there flavor? It doesn't matter.
Strawberry, Mike.
I don't care what it is. It's just going to have frosting on top of it. No matter what it is, there's frosting on top.
Eileen Schmores. Wait, are there dry Pop-Tarts?
Yeah, without frosting.
There's a lot of Pop-Tarts, and like I think that all Pop-Tarts with frosting are good.
A lot of childhoods were ruined that way. Right. I hear that the brown sugar ones are supposed to be really good, but I'm not looking for more sweet things in my life. So,
especially because Rolling Stones are like the people in the commercial. That's so weird, guys. It's a very racist song by them.
Yeah, that's true. Don't karaoke that song.
That is all the time we have for the speed round. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, awards. Taste buds, it is that time we all know and love. We are here to give some awards, and I do believe Spirited Away was nominated for awards back in the day.
It won Best Animated Feature.
That's pretty important.
That's an Oscar.
That is a full-on Oscar, but you know what's more important? The 5 awards we're giving away tonight, starting with the Best Character Design, Greg.
Okay. This is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life associated with this show. I went back and forth. I won't list them all because probably we're going to talk about a few of them, but I just have to give shout-outs to Duck Spirit. They clearly...
Hey, I still have to go. Let me list them all. I'm second in here.
It's never talked about. Point. It's never talked about, but they clearly just like to have things on their heads.
Yeah, they
do. So I won't run through a whole list of them, but the ultimate choice, though, what I fell on was Yubaba. I can't help it. Like, I loved every second she's on the screen. I find her like the most like engrossing animated character I've ever seen. She may be bad, but I couldn't take my eyes off her.
Hey, Yubaba. All right. So, Greg, let's talk about a couple of these. I cannot believe you did not say the triplet ducks with leaves on their heads. That is the most Greg thing I've ever fucking seen in my entire life.
Yeah, I know. It was, you don't know how hard it was not to make that my final
That was
answer.
his honorable mention. I respected it.
Their wide-eyed looks, Ryan, and like, I don't know what it is, but they feel comfortable when they have a leaf on their head. And so when they're in the bath, if they can't find a leaf, they put a towel on their head. And like, it makes me feel a little like angry how cute that is.
Was there a moment in the movie where somebody was like, who hurt you? Was that Frog Guy 1, Frog Guy 2? One of those ducks with the leaves on their heads? Like, were they mentioned in dialogue?
I don't think so. They were just always background having a good old time.
I think at one point somebody might say duck spirit, but it might not. They might never have been. The other one that has to be Ryan, turtle, or rather frog in like a little kimono. Especially when he's walking and he's trying to avoid the hay spirit, the no face.
The problem with a lot of these, they didn't get enough animation, and so Mike, this is not my thing. I'm just talking to Greg right now. The other one I'm not going to nominate is Radish Spirit, where it comes into the movie in this perfect point where you're like, I think I like this, but maybe I like this movie, maybe I don't. You don't know.
Yeah.
And then Radish Spirit comes in, and you're like, I will never stop watching this movie. I just want to watch him walk. I want to hear his steps. I want to see his little fucking flesh mustache flap around in the room. Oh God!
How about when his eye just like they're in the elevator together and just his eye moves like the Triceratops from Jurassic Park or something? Like just his like looking at her all of a sudden is enough to make you want to like shout out.
And I gotta say, one of the reasons this is the best movie of all time is I don't think we talked about it enough when Chihiro was like, how about this shit? None of those pigs are my parents. And then the whole town fucking cheers, including Radish Spirit. He is moving more than we have ever seen him before.
So, who's your answer there, Ryan?
It's Kamaji. It's I have to think that somebody animating this movie has an uncle or a dad or a brother or somebody that has tiny glasses and a big mustache. He's a spider person, and his arms stretch forever, and he can reach into all the cupboards behind him. And he's also like a slave, and he's trying to like be okay with it, but he's clearly not. And he's trying to drip his slavery down on other people. Like if he yells at the soot enough, then maybe he doesn't feel like he's more of a slave master. But it's so weird. Like Radish Spirit is just like okay, you drew a white circle, and that's the character. Good job. But Kamaji, I think, is insane to see in a movie.
Yeah, it feels like he should be more villainous, but he has like that heart of gold, and you can see all of that in his design.
And he knows Chihiro right away. He's like, "Get out of here, bitch!" Oh, no, you might be good.
I'm gonna have to give it to Kamaji as the best character design. Next up is horniest food. What part is the horniest food scene? Starting with you, Ryan, this time.
I mean, this movie loves food. Couple of things I want to point out, but I can't because Greg is going next, so I won't. I'll just say what I think. And it's really hard to get away from Chihiro's parents, who will just grab onto whatever entire cooked or fried or baked animal they can get their hands on and shove it directly into their mouth. I cannot believe how these people eat, and I want to eat like that. This is why you guys don't see me eat. Is because this is the way that I eat.
It's such a sexual experience that you can't submit that to anybody. Greg?
This movie has I know that like this movie celebrates food and that it draws like very pretty pictures of it, but it seems to have like a kind of fucked up relationship with food. Chihiro seems to be celebrated for like not wanting to eat anything, and then she's made to eat a couple of different times, and it like fortifies her. But it seems like her choice is not to eat at all, and for her to be the moral center of the movie. That's weird, especially when so many other creatures, their gluttony is personified in like being heavy. And as a heavy person, like I kind of like some of the strays from this movie kind of hit me. A lot of these things are shown to be that their weakness is codified in the fact that they're like fat and flabby.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, this movie sort of says at points like, "Oh, what are you, a Nazi or a fascist, or like you're a terrible person or you're evil? Doesn't matter. You're not as bad as people who eat a lot."
Yeah,
God damn it,
this
you're
fat
disgusting.
baby. And then the only way things get redeemed is like when they purge until they're not fat anymore. So I'm not totally comfortable with this, with the movie's actual relationship with food. And I'm also not comfortable with the fact that they turn people into pigs and then they seem to eat pigs, including the thing that looked really good to me, which was like this huge, what I assume is a steamed pork bun that Lynn and Chihiro share at one point. That looks so good to me.
Hell
but
yeah,
I know
that looks so good.
I know they put pork in that, but like I'm just really those like dumplings or any of those like little like breaded things are so good. It's probably my parents, but I gotta have that spiced pork.
Yeah, it's crazy. Chihiro doesn't eat her parents, but she does eat somebody's parents right there.
Yeah,
Like,
she eats some humans that were turned into pigs.
To have a pork dumpling the size of your head is amazing. But
you go splitsies with a friend on it, like dude.
Nope. I'm
that
gonna pass out and fall asleep right after I eat it. But because it's horntiest, not just most delicious, the sexual fervor that those parents eat that all of the food with is.
You know what? Like, I'm not
wild.
super into sex and or food. You know what turns me on the most? Just being able to say, I have cash and credit cards. So I think it all combines into one right
Kick
there.
down that Morton's door and just yell that out and see what happens. Your next award is Spirited Awayist. Starting with you, Greg.
So this one was my second hardest award to pick what was the most spiritiest awayest. At first I was going to be like, okay, the parents, because they fucking just drive by a magic castle and they can't help but like go right into it and start eating the food that's right there. Then I was going to say me, because I've never been so transported by a movie. But finally I'm going to say that it is Japan. Japan itself, I think, is shown as like having lost contact with its spirit, because it's not the same thing as Mishima. It's not like we have to reclaim a dying spirit and then we decide that it's not there. I really do feel
Mishima was like, we lost the spirit, and then Mishima was like, I'll prove that we should have done that the entire time. Like, I will prove them right.
Well, his thing is like, if they all follow me and decide to embrace Bushido code again, then I'll know that the spirit is still here. And when they're like, no, you're absurd, he's like, the spirit's definitely dead forever. But so ultimately I say Japan. The spirit is still there, Japan, from what I can tell. It's just you need to be in contact with it again. Maybe find a magic little girl.
So you're saying Japan wasn't spirited away, but it has gone away from its spirits.
Yeah, it's spirited awayist.
Interesting interpretation of the award. Ryan?
And I was going to say me, because this movie spirited me away, but it seems like it spirited away Greg more, so I'm going to say Greg. Greg is my answer.
That might be right.
I think it was based on the text and him throughout today.
Ryan.
It feels weird, but I'm giving Ryan the point for Greg for being the most spirited away by Spirited Away.
I just love being transported.
In that same vein, the settiest piece. What is the best set piece of the film? Ryan?
Oh, I think it has to go like, because it's sort of in the middle, because we want Chihiro to be not the petulant little baby, but also not, like fighting to save the day. Right in the middle comes the stink monster, and all of her, how great she is at being Chihiro, and how terrible she is at being Chihiro, all comes together here in a non-stop poop fest that'll keep your family clapping forever. I cannot believe how much the poop delighted me. I cannot believe how much that board with the herbal steam, like the herbal water coming down. The second one where it was like, oh, this poop's gonna get defeated. how that felt like Captain America punching Ultron in the face, right? Like, bath. That's all we need to do is just like give each other a bath.
Take a nice.
I think this set piece stands up with a lot of the MCU like big bangers. I think that Chihiro versus the Stink Monster is the obvious choice.
Correct.
Yeah. I have no choice but to just piggyback off that. And I will say this. I saw this movie a long time ago when it first came out, and I forgot most of it. But the thing I didn't forget is all this shit like pouring out of this creature. And there are times where I have, been worrying about like payments that I have to make, or maybe subscriptions that I have that I don't utilize effectively enough, or whether or not my car is too expensive or I should get rid of it. And in those moments, I imagine like purging all of this stuff from my system and just not being so bogged down by all this shit that I have like caught up in my river. And this is like the image of this thing happening has been like something that I have thought of when I've been just absolutely overwhelmed by just like the world and the consumerist capitalist part of the world that besets our spirits. But really, besides all that, it's just a banger of a scene. It's so cool, and you care so much about it. And when they succeed, you feel as triumphant as everybody else does. It's the amazing heart of a wonderful movie.
Oh yeah, I hate to do it.
Ryan, Greg.
You both get a point for that one. And your final award of the evening is the director's signature moment, Greg.
Okay, this is always so hard for me because I don't do a good job paying attention about directors. And then I don't say things that are specific enough. So I'll say this one. Those dust guys. Those dust guys are in Totoro, man. We've seen those dust spirits before.
The little soot fairies.
They're wonderful, and I think it reminds us that, like, through this reminds us that, like, the smallest, like, least seeming significant spirits can, like, be imbued with importance. And I think she learns from the soot spirits. She learns a valuable lesson about, like, being helpful but not being walked on. And I think she carries that forward. And I think those little soot guys end up being a huge part of the movie.
Ryan, rebuttal?
Fuck you, Greg. How about that shit?
You must be out of your goddamn mind.
I really want to talk about the now that Greg is gone. So now Greg and I can talk about like things that we almost nominated but didn't. Greg, what did you think about that scene where Haku and Chihiro were like, we didn't need them to like follow up on their relationship, but they got to fly in the sky and have her remind him that he's a river spirit and then fall together. That's Miyazaki as fuck. But I have to go with it's just Chihiro in general. Like, this could have been any other lead character, and typically it would have been somebody who was a little bit more white and a little bit more boy. You know, like even coming out of this like, you know, area, like this sounds like a fucking story for a preteen boy, and it's not. It goes to Chihiro, a 12-year-old going on 13, going on 40-year-old girl who needs more stories. And, you know, and like he said before he made it, that like, I met a girl who seemed down, and the reason that she seemed down is because she doesn't have enough stories for her, and that he grew up having a ton of stories for him. And the fact that he always dedicates all this time to figure out whether it's the lead of Totoro or Mononoke or Spirited Away or movies that we haven't watched like Kiki's Delivery Service or whatever, that like, these girls need more stories about them. I think that's the most Miyazaki as fuck.
I read that he was like hanging out with this girl that he like, both his daughter and he was like a family friend. They know this girl, and his daughter was hanging out with her, and that's like she became the basis of Chihiro. And he said he like wanted to look at the magazines she was reading to like see like the heart of her, and he was looking.
She was
at the
like
magazines.
being a bitch, right? Like she was kind of being a butthole.
I think so, yeah. And he wanted to find out like about her spirit and everything, because I think he kind of liked the fact that she was like a little obstinate,
right?
And he looked at the magazines and he said like, these don't speak to her actual spirit,
right? Like
they're not like, she cares about really big important things, and these
it's all
magazines,
Tiger Beat.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. Boys they had crushes on and stuff, and he said like they don't know the heart of her. I can see that, like I can tell a story about the heart of her that like we don't have right now.
It's either Tiger Beat or it's like G.I. Joe or whatever, where it's like, get the fuck away from the girl so that you can go win the day. Like the girl is holding you back, and it's those two things combined just like left her sad.
Well, I got to tell you, Greg had a very specific thing, and then Ryan just said the protagonist, and I rolled my eyes, and I was like, well, it's going to be the fucking soot things. And then that goddamn explanation about everybody needing stories.
Do you want me to do the soot one again? I'll do the soot one again if you want me to.
I guess
just run through the soot thing again real quick.
Just run through right that. Those are your awards. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, reveal who will be my best friend for the next week and how we think Spirited Away will do. Taste buds. That is, unfortunately, all the time we have to talk about Spirited Away, and I'm very sad.
Boo.
I know. I agree. The crowd agrees.
Boo this man.
No, not me.
Boo him. Boo you, Mike.
No.
Boo.
No, don't listen to Greg. Listen to me.
Boo,
Don't listen to Greg.
Everybody.
I do think it kind of sucks though, because when you're a movie podcast that just like reviews whatever came out that week, it's like, we don't know. This is not our responsibility. We'll review whatever, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But for us, we don't do that. We pick and choose, and we have brackets and stuff. And then watching a movie like this makes me think about like Breakfast Club and Fight Club and other clubs club-based movies that we watch. Be like, well, what the fuck, man? Like, we should do another Spirited Away episode instead of any of that. this is in my top 10 movies of all time.
You said that, and I was like, oh, interesting. And yeah, I fully understand why. And
Before you watched it, you mean?
Yeah. I wasn't like, I knew I liked Miyazaki and Ghibli, so I was like, yeah, probably. But I had never heard you talk about it before, so I was mad at you for never doing that. I was mad at me for not seeing it before, and now I'm doubly so on both.
Yeah, it feels like the movie that like pulls up next to you, lights a cigar, and it's like, what else do you want from a fucking movie, dude?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even talk about the fact that all of these spirits smoke cigarettes nonstop.
Yeah.
Like, this is just a whole world of smoking spirits.
Well, one of you has been my friend, and one of you has been my enemy. Based on the awards, one of you will be my friend, and one of you will be my enemy, because that's just how this works. I don't know if it will remain the same or switch. I got to tell you that how it evens out is it was a good show. It was a good showing by both contestants. I'm proud of you both as the panelists of Movie of the Year. Ryan, you did come out with 38 points.
Whoa, that's a lot of points, Ryan.
But Greg, you came out with 33 points.
Yeah, that was mean. I knew you were being mean, and so I did.
Everyone knew what Mike was doing right there, right?
So
like,
but no matter what I
knew
do,
it.
you fucks are like, we knew what you were going to do. So how are you
know.
supposed to do it? You fucking
What is your damage?
jerks.
You should say them both at the same time.
Oh, okay.
I do have to say, though, that at the end of last week's episode, Greg was like, oh my God, thank God I won that, because if I didn't win that, like,
Yeah.
because, you know, like, Fellowship is like a big movie for him.
Yeah.
After this, for 2001, like, it's all me and Greg tied for everything, but like, this is this is my movie.
Yeah.
You know?
So
yeah.
you-
And
you
I, on
needed
the other
it.
hand, didn't care. So
It was clear.
is it even really a victory if one of the people didn't even try?
Ryan.
Wow, with 39 points there.
Because you guys can't see it, most of the time that we were recording, Greg was just shaving squirrels' tails. He was
Yeah.
shaving the tails of squirrels the entire time.
I'm not even deeply invested in this. Hey. Squirrels,
It is
squirrels,
gross. So
squirrels.
It
how
really does sound like Rivers Cuomo.
It does.
Like a lot.
and it's connected to river spirits, so maybe there's something
Wait
going
a
on
minute.
there.
Hang on.
And Mayor Cuomo.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel Spirited Away could do going forward?
This is a question that you should not ask, Mike.
I know.
This is a question that like ruins the entire
Yeah.
season. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of a movie that there's a movie that I like more than this. A movie that like fucks me up. But if either one of you don't like it that much, then it's just fucking done. And I think Spirited Away runs away with this entire season.
Yeah, I
I not knowing.
This is the story of a girl, right? Who runs
And?
a bath and saves the whole world. You know? We're not supposed to say that this is definitely going to be the movie of the year, so
Well, let me ask you guys this: like, we fawned all over Totoro and Mononoke. Do you guys think that this is years and light years beyond that?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'm kind of sad about, and this is a weird thing to say, but it's a total Greg type thing. The only thing I'm sad about is I know this is his best movie. I don't think that there's a possibility.
There's no going up from here.
Yeah, so I feel a
Oh,
little
wow.
sad about that because this is the third of his movies I've seen, and I would be very, very surprised if he has another movie in the league of this movie. I'm sure they're all very, very good, you know, but like this is like this goes into the rarefied air of movies of the year movies. It's like up there with like 3 or 4 other movies.
It's for 1 second while I was watching it, or for like 2 hours and 5 minutes worth of seconds while I was watching. I was thinking about all the people that I know who are like, animated movies, fuck that. They're not good. They're for kids. They're stupid. They're automatically stupid. And I just wanted to fight them all. Like I think this is in my top 10 movies of all time.
Yeah, it's not a good animated movie. It's a great movie. Like,
Yeah.
there's no qualifiers needed for any part of it. Also, I think we grew up with really, really bad animation, especially on TV. And part of the way that they did it was like they didn't put anything interesting on the screen. And so, like, I don't think most people know that animation can be like this. It can be
Right.
as intricate as any drawing you've ever seen, and then moving at like 30 frames a second or whatever.
Whereas the stories about this movie, like all the people who are like, oh, you can't watch this movie once or twice and get it, like you have to watch it 3 or 4 or 10 times. All the stories are like Miyazaki was Pop Filter Hall of Famer. Miyazaki was literally animating and drawing things into corners that you would never expect all the way up to distribution time.
Wow.
Like every single cell is like, oh, print that out, and I'm going to frame it, and I'm going to put it on my wall.
Yeah.
Some say that each VHS that came out, because they were still around, he would draw a different one as it would go out the door.
Classic Miyazaki.
Did you guys ever feel bad?
Oh, no. That horrifying sound means we need to wrap it up, but what did we ever feel bad about what, Greg?
Like, knowing how hard it can be at some animation studios. Like, you look at like a really nice scene and you feel like, was this made by the equivalent of soot? Like, were artists treated the way that like the bathhouse people were treated to create this?
4,000 people made 12 cents in order for me to see that 1 second of shit.
Yeah. That's a good note to end on, I think.
Cruel crowd out there. They do not care about the people who make the things they love. We'll see how Spirited Away does for the rest of the season.
It's the best movie I've ever seen.
Okay,
Wow.
So it's already jumped from in the top 10 to the best. Yeah, that's crazy. You both had a great showing. I love talking about movies with you. We all need these moments so badly right now. Not this weekend, because it's been a pretty good fucking weekend for the whole country. Next week we are watching. What weekend is this? If the Red Wedding was worth celebrating. Next week we are watching Piano Teacher, which is a mystery to all of us. So watch
Mike,
with us.
A couple weeks ago we did I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and we did Charlie Kaufman characters for the Rushmore.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to change the Rushmore to Michael Haneke characters?
Yeah.
And see how that mountain
Let's
looks?
see how many funny games end up on the mountain. Until then, keep watching those movies.